So thoughts will be bumbling around, but just let them do that, like the little birds chirping on the eaves. And allow the body to reveal herself moment by moment. The simplicity and innocence. Sensation of temperature. The feet, the hands. Sensation of the face, vibration of the eyes. Don't have any agenda. Just let this body reveal itself free of a visual. What is the body like if I don't bring any visual representation? Does the body feel anything like it looks like in the anatomy books in this moment? Be willing to explore the possibility that the body flows in you. You are this openness. The body, she's like a river. She flows. It's not the other way around. I don't live in the body. The body lives in me. What does that feel like? If I am awareness, if I am openness, and if this body is my creation, what happens? Allowing just this wilderness, this freedom of the body. Okay, and let's open our eyes. This is just a tiny little taster just to introduce what I love to do, but I don't like to talk about it very much, so bear with me. Exploring the body, because as I invited us to feel this possibility of a body that the reality of which is this openness and the expression of which is freedom, most of us, I imagine, will have felt quite a different thing, which is a kind of a web of tension, possibly, of contraction, layers of feelings, all sorts of things that we call the body, and that are a kind of creation to defend and to perpetuate and to assert the separate self. And that, for most of us, is what we experience as the body a lot of the time. Not all the time. You know, I know we all have moments of joy or of love, or moments where the separate self relaxes and the body's just free to express, to flow, but it's not obvious. And the suffering that we all, you know, as human beings, inevitably and naturally experience, it's very much its location. It takes place in the body. We have stories about our suffering, but where it really needs to be attended to and explored is the body. So this is what I like to share with people. And this is really what the non-dual yoga, the tradition of Kashmir Shaivism, and Advaita transposed to the body are intending to do, is to really take this understanding that we share here in all sorts of ways, but take the understanding that we share with our thinking, with our understanding, and transpose it into the body, and try to perceive this body in line with the understanding that what I truly am is unlocated, first of all, is not solid, is not fixed, is not, dot, dot, dot. So it's a very beautiful, I like to call it a ritual, in fact, because it's not something that we do to end gain. It's not something to do so that I, the spiritual one, can feel better, can be more expanded, more embodied. It's something that is done because of our love of truth, because we want the truth, we want freedom. So it's a ritual. It's an act of surrendering the body to our understanding of what the truth is, or surrendering the body to the possibility that suffering, to quote my friend Gail, is optional, but not to bypass suffering. And I'm getting a bit lost, so I think I'd like to just, because I know everybody's interested in this theme, just maybe let's have a conversation, ask questions, and it will trigger thoughts and responses. So if anything comes up. Oh, sorry, because you need the mic, but you'll get the next one.
Thank you. I was just going to ask what you do. Do you have any personal practices to take care of your body?
Do I have any personal practices that what?
To take care of your body.
Well, if you come tomorrow to my experiential, I'll share more in-depth practices. So yes, there are things, I don't like to call them practices because they're fresh, and if you call them a practice, they become a bit mechanical. But there are traditions, the Kashmir, it's a tradition. There were things to do. For example, I'll give you an example, but really we have to then go there. It's not any good to talk about practices, but for example, exploring the sense of the sensation of weight, or exploring the sense of being located, or how do I welcome a feeling of fear or pain or suffering. There are practices, there are specific ways or pathways, tactile pathways, energetic pathways that are used. But go to the experientials, because that's what has been explored here, are practices to free the body, you could say. This lady had a...
Can you say something more about, I don't know if I can explain it, but in the topic of suffering. In our perception, and I feel that is part of our reality, often suffering comes from events in our lives that we have not consciously chosen. And they bring about thoughts, feelings, and sensations in our bodies. Personally, I have found that when I am in a situation with either a counselor or a friend or another person who is trying to deny those.
Deny, did you say?
Deny or not validate those thoughts,
Yes.
feelings, and bodily sensations, I actually feel more suffering.
Of course, yes.
And how does that fit into the non-duality perspective of life?
It fits very well. Because suffering is so human, isn't it? Everybody suffers, and it must be that it's God-given suffering somehow. It's a call, right? It's a kind of tug when we feel suffering. But the question is what to do with this suffering. And I think in my understanding, I don't know about the non-dual approach really, but in my understanding, suffering in the now. If you can either explore your suffering in the horizontal, in the storyline, in the past, in the future. What happened to me as a child? What might happen tomorrow? But in this approach, in a way, we practice exploring the body so that when the situation out there in life becomes challenging, perhaps we will be able to meet it intimately. So suffering in the now, in this moment, fear, sadness, grief, anger, what is it? What is it now? If I take the story away, because the story takes me into the past and the future, if I lay the story down for now, and I just stay with the raw, visceral wave of so-called whatever, and then nothing, no agenda. Take the label away even, allow this energy to blossom, to tell its story, it's very hard to talk about it because you have to go there, really, you have to do it, but it's really, suffering is a call for love, really, right? It's a call for love, but it's not abstract. It's like you're giving the body over to love by allowing this layer of pain to come to the surface, sometimes to express it. But the fine line is that the little me that is embedded in the suffering, she must go too. She must also be surrendered. So I'm not surrendering the suffering so that I, the little me, can feel better, and then can go on to the next suffering. No, I'm surrendering. Really, I and suffering are the same thing. So it's a sacrifice. You're giving yourself to the suffering completely. But I could say, we could talk much more about that. It's a very big topic. And sometimes in the non-dual Advaita world, there can be a bit of a quick trajectory to the absolute, right? Like, I am consciousness, zip. And it's problematic because that doesn't teach us the pathways. Tactile doesn't feel right. The full pathways that obviously are available.
Thank you. We often listen with the Advaita Vedanta and Vedanta that we're not the body, we're not the feeling, we're not the thought. And for me, within this path, this direct path, at a certain moment, I felt that consciousness herself wanted me to descend in the body, to really experience her within the body. And
did you listen to her?
Yeah, and actually I felt that I really need to kind of, I don't know how to say it, to suffer my suffering, to live fully my suffering so that I can experience a proper ascension, as if I needed to descend so that I can ascend. But it's really confusing when you hear, for example, quotes from Ramana Maharshis or whatever, saying we're not the body, we are not the body, and then you hear another discourse that you need to be completely the emotion to know that you are beyond the emotion, that you are not that emotion, but you need to live it fully and completely.
But don't be confused. Just let those two pathways coexist because they're both beautiful, you know? Because sometimes in these circles we're so wanting to embody, we're so wanting the feminine, the Shakti, the body, that we kind of reject the rigor and the beauty of the self-inquiry path of Ramana, which it's the vertical.
That's for me kind of the masculine and feminine
yes.
energy. And
so you don't have to resolve the confusion. You don't have to resolve it, but definitely heed the call of the descent, because it's, in a way, in our spiritual culture, it's beginning now to bubble up. But because there are not so many teachers that articulate it, we all a little bit like, okay, you know, in the dark with it. I mean, there are many traditions, the feminine traditions and Shakti traditions, and the Kashmir tradition is a descent. So, but you don't have to resolve this. There's a time for both. There's a time for you to abide as awareness and allow all the objects that appeared, which include the body, which include, to be seen as not real. They are real. Their reality is derived from your reality, but they come and go. You don't come and go. And this is an experience. This is. But at another moment, you are exploring that I am all, that I am one with all experience, that there is no separation, that there's not even that. You, in a way, I want to say, at another moment, you go in the dark. You go in the not knowing. It's no longer the exploration where you're going, following a pathway, that a spiritual path. You are, but because you love the truth, because you love God, or I don't know, or because you are in love with this life, you know you must go. And you come out the other side.
It's about dying before dying, anyway.
Sorry?
It's about dying before dying, somehow.
Yes. And then the next moment, the mind comes back in and formulates what happens, maybe in a beautiful way, or maybe not. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, you mentioned Kashmiri Shaivism a few times. I'm not really aware of the practice or the term, so could you please expand on that, please?
Well, I'll be sharing that more tomorrow in an experiential, so it would be better to come to get a taste, because I'm not very good at talking about it, really. It's a very ancient, Joya Lusana, who was speaking here today, with the red hair. She's very learned about the scriptures, but it's an ancient, medieval, very ancient tradition. Abhinavagupta was one of the main sages in the 12th or 13th century in Kashmir, and it was a tradition that explored the reality of experience. But you could say, maybe to make it very simple, and I hope, you know, that it was the understanding that all is consciousness, all is vibration. It was looking at Shakti, really, more than at pure consciousness, at manifestation as an emission of consciousness. And so in the practices that are derived from that tradition, the explorations that are derived from that tradition are with the body, with beauty, with perception. That's all I'll say for now.
Okay, thanks.
But there's a lot written, and yeah.
So I think even Ramana Maharshi at the end of his life started doubting the path of neglecting the body.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I think what is said, what was said historically also, that would lead religions, spirituality to completely abnegate the body and not include the physical experience into...
What do you think?
Into suppression, political reasons. I mean, that's what I come up with in a sense.
I mean, it's not my purpose here to, but you know, it's a fear of this. You know, I could go into political directions or kind of platitudes about the fear of the feminine.
Leave political reasons out, but what was?
But you can find that in you. That's what's interesting. Rather than speculate about Ramana or why the Hindu traditions were so denying of the body, or the Catholic. In ourselves, if we go to the body, you know, many of us, we find that denial of the body. We are constantly denying the body. We constantly have an agenda with the body. We constantly manipulating the body, projecting on the body. So even, I mean, I know I do it constantly. So it must be that it's so deeply inherent. It's something so deep in us, this dichotomy, this fear. So maybe we should, I don't know, I feel that even that is divine in a way. That maybe because if we point fingers, you know, of course I point fingers too. You know, I point them at my husband sometimes. Or, you know, the masculine, the patriarchy, the suppressor of the body. But
yeah, is this like the biggest delusion that we've been living for the past, you know,
what illusion?
2,000 years, the denial of the body and the physical.
Of being out of the body?
The denial of the
denial
body,
of the body.
And the denial of the body also as a divine instrument. I mean, I think the body is correct. I mean, my body is telling me very correctly.
You're right. The body is it's pure
It's a map.
intelligence. But we've lost the compass. We don't, you know, we need to reconnect in such a simple way with the body. But you're right. It's because the body is in the moment. It's in the now. The body. It's the body when she's free of you know. It's so hard for me to talk about this, but. It's either the intelligence flows freely, or the intelligence is captive, you could say. And even in her captivity, when we feel the suffering in the body, when we feel a sense of restriction, of tension, even then the body's our teacher, because all we have to do is go there. All we have to do is really welcome the so-called constriction. And what gets revealed there, you know, I don't know. What gets revealed there is intelligence, pure love.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and it's accurate. It's absolutely accurate. I mean,
yes, but it's easy to say, isn't it? So that's where we have to be careful. It's easy to say it. We really have to go there. We have to go there. We can't just say, "Oh yeah." I'm not suggesting that's what you're doing.
No, but that trust seems to have been bred out of us, you know, the trust.
That's right. There's a lot of pain around that. It's a reclaiming of that. But there are some spiritual figures like Lala and some feminine figures and some teachers. You know, we have role models, nature. We don't have to, we mustn't give up, because the planet needs that very much at the moment, right? That kind of healing.
Hi, as an experiencer of energy, I'm also in touch with other people who just experience energy, biological energy. And there are times where we seem to collectively experience too much. It may be individual, it may be, you know, certain circumstances that are individual, but other times it seems like there's a collective sense where there's just an overwhelming sense of connection to the body and connection to spirit. I'm wondering, we do try to ground energy through nature. We also scale back on certain practices, but I'm wondering if you have additional insight. Sometimes meditation is too much for some people I know. Sometimes.
But talk about yourself, because I can't address.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
For me, it was Kundalini.
Sorry?
It was Kundalini.
Kundalini, but.
An emergence.
So you have had an experience of overwhelm with energy?
Over 7 years, yes. But there's times where it wavers. I can ground it. It seems to have a process. But there's times where it's just very intense. The connection to spirit is almost too much.
But so, of course, in this approach, you would wonder, who is it too much for, or what is it too much for? Because if it's too much, it's referring to something limited and fragile. And in that moment where there's overwhelm, the feeling of overwhelm itself needs to be explored and welcomed. It will be a fear. It will be it will be a bodily sensation, it will be a thought. So, sometimes certain approaches can be quite full on, and there can be an eruption. So this is why, for example, in the Kashmir approach, you go very gently.
Interesting.
In a way to prepare yourself for life or going to your Kundalini class where it will be less gentle. But so the exploration would be to see and to feel, not just to understand, but to feel that in which eruptions arise is imperturbable, is infinitely open. So there's no danger. It's safe. But you can't bypass. You can't go straight there. Right. You have to. You really have to explore the feeling of overwhelm.
And I've gone through a lot of integration, but it's interesting that...
Say that again?
I've gone through a lot of work to
Yes.
integrate everything, but there's occasionally just a week or a certain moment where things are intense again, and it certainly seems to be teaching. And it's been a matter of learning to allow.
Yes.
But I find I do have to sometimes scale back on certain practices, and I found others do too.
Each one of us, we find our ways to, practices are beautiful. They're God-given too. As long as it's not mechanical, and it stays fresh and alive, and it's all God-given. All these practices of grounding or shaping or giving form. Mm-hmm. That's what form is about, is to contain, to celebrate, to point towards, but not to protect, defend, and assert. But form will remain.
And sometimes senses of humor help too.
Sorry?
A sense of humor with the process seems to help as well.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, thank you. Mm-hmm.
I actually can relate with what she said, and for me, my understanding was like she wants to be approached in a certain way. I mean, Shakti wants to be approached in a certain way. Not necessarily, I don't want to end up in a very dualistic, framework, but not necessarily in a masculine way. She wants to be approached in a much more intuitive and receptive way. Otherwise, she can be sauvage.
Ouais.
Hi. I'd just like to understand a little bit more what you said about connecting to the present without relating to future and past. Because in my experience, at least, usually, especially body experience, they are going to relate to something in the past, and so there is a way of not doing this?
Well, when you just said that a feeling in the body is, in your experience, always related to the past?
Yeah, most of the time.
But which part of the feeling is related to the past?
Pain?
So, is that really true? Is pain always related to the past?
No, but the mind connects
That's right.
to the past.
But that's it. So the mind will always refer to the past and project into the future. So in this exploration, we set aside that because we see that thoughts also come and go, but we were more with the tactile sense, with the body. And the body is always in the now, when it's free of the mind, right? A sensation cannot be anywhere else but in the now. Does that make sense?
Thank you. I was just going to say I can relate also to what the lady at the front and the lady to the side of me said. And what I'm finding now is to really try and take care of my body. And I've recently started working with a nutritionist to make sure that I'm eating properly and that I'm really being nourished on a material level. And then obviously exercise, moving the body. Yeah, so obviously dance, yoga, all these things. Also strength training. Apparently strength training is meant to be really good. So if you're being overwhelmed by energy or awareness, having a really strong body can help you handle that, I think.
Thank you. That's helpful. I mean, it's helpful on a relative level, what you just said. And of course here we're exploring something that's a little bit, how to say this? don't limit yourself to that. Explore further in your case. Nourish your body, strengthen your body, take care of your body, but make sure you don't mistake yourself for your body.
Thank you. Actually, I wanted to touch on something that she said over here on the side. It's the last point she made, which I think is kind of one of the most important points in almost every area that I can think of, and so maybe including in this body physical conversation, which obviously I don't know the practice quite yet until tomorrow, just because I'm told I'm not going to ask you about it until I go tomorrow and experience it so much. But she said something about comedy, or a sense of humor, actually, which is to take the weight, literally, because you were talking about weight, and you can't make yourself laugh. You can't, laughter is a spontaneous release of weight emotionally, which can also lead to a physical release as well. So I wonder if you have any, I don't know, notions or
about laughter,
concepts, or about laughter and humor within the realm of,
all I know is
releasing physical.
Laughter is one of God's attributes.
Yeah.
Humor.
Yeah.
But I don't have it, it's spontaneous. Is that it? Okay. I don't have much more. I mean, humor is self-explanatory, right? But it definitely kind of does its job.
I think it's not a question, it is just to clarify, and also partly it's a comment as well. I think there is two levels. One is relative level and absolute level, relative level or absolute level, or relative truth or absolute truth. Putting body in the context, of course, body is so important, body is a vehicle, and all along we have been discussing about the consciousness, and to put things in the right context, I think body is a temple and we have to maintain that. But that is to a certain level, it is a vehicle, and vehicle to carry on, to develop to the full-blown consciousness and full realization. And sometimes if you are giving too much importance to the body, of course, as I said, it is important, but sometimes the message is little distorted or conveyed in a different angle at the expense of the absolute truth where we have to be grounded.
Yes.
And
but you're right. I mean, so far we've been focusing on the body, but really the focus isn't the body.
yes.
The body is one of the...
Yeah, traditional...
Because the body is what we identify with,
Yeah.
most of us.
Yeah.
We make it the object of our contemplation. And in this contemplation, what happens is the me that seemed to be embedded in the body returns to the space, the listening, the presence.
Yeah.
And the body is free to be a body, meaning the body is then free to express this understanding.
Yeah.
So
And
just so that the attention is not on the body, the attention
Yes.
is on.
But at the same time, body is such a complex. Body is such a complex machine.
Yes.
And to understand and control absolutely is difficult.
To control and...
To control body in an absolute term is quite hard and difficult.
But who wants to, do you want to control your body?
No, it's not. I think sometimes the target or the aim is not that.
No.
I think to functionality, to function to a certain level, to do whatever practice. So to that level we should aim for, not complete mastery of the body.
Yes.
And I think in a Buddhist point of view, I think so long I am not my body, I am not my mind. We have been practicing that. And but when we aim to master the body, but it is hard, it is difficult. I mean, I'm not saying that one, but I'm saying in a relative term, but that should be in the mind. Of course, we should aim for betterment, but not to focus too much on that. And yeah.
Well, I think I kind of get what you say. For example, in our culture now in the West, there's a lot of yoga that happens.
Yes.
And a lot of that yoga focuses on the body, the physical body, mastering the body. Is that what you mean, maybe? That's maybe a little bit of a misguidance in terms of exploring our true nature?
No, I don't mean that way, because the fundamental thing is liberation,
yes,
enlightenment, or whatever the different terms, yes, or being in the presence or a consciousness or a being.
Yes, yes.
So that should be put on the right context. Sometimes it is being, I don't know, but it is, yeah.
Yes, I mean, the people who are interested in the body, they're free to be interested in the body. The people who are interested in the truth, they're free to be interested in the truth. But absolutely, if you're interested in the truth, you're not interested in mastering the body. You're interested in the truth.
Yeah.
You're interested in freedom. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to worry. You just need to follow what you're interested in. If you're interested in mastering the body, why not? But clearly you're not. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
But there's no danger.
Okay. Thank you, Hélène.
Thank you.
That was wonderful. And I really
bye. Thank you.